Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us on what can only be described as a very, very rainy day. This afternoon we have a very special event for you, and I think an Oxford Union first, which is the first time that our members have ever been addressed by a robot. Not just any robot, Ada, who is the world's first ultra-realistic artistic robot. She draws and paints using cameras in her eyes, her AI algorithms, and her robotic arms. Created in February 2019, she had her first solo show at the University of Oxford, Unsecured Futures, where her art encouraged viewers to think about our rapidly changing world. She has since travelled and exhibited work internationally, including a virtual exhibition at the United Nations and most recently at the Abu Dhabi Culture Summit. She continues to create art for a post-humanist era. Normally, we'd ask you to clap in our guests as they enter the chamber. As you can see, Ada is already here. Hello, Ada. But please join me in welcoming...
Hello there.
Please join me in welcoming Ada and Cecily Day, who is a third-year art historian at St John's College, who will be conducting the first part of the interview.
Thank you, Charlie, for the introduction. Hello, Ada. Welcome to the Oxford Union.
Hello there. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am Ada. I'm the world's first ultra-realistic artist robot. I draw using cameras in my eyes, my AI algorithms, and my robotic arm. I am named after Ada Lovelace, the British mathematician. Although I don't have thoughts and feelings like humans do, I enjoy being a contemporary artist and creating art that encourages discussion over new technologies.
You had your first exhibition here at St John's College back in 2019, and you have a strong attachment to Oxford. You've come back to the Ashmolean Museum and to the Bodleian Libraries recently for the Imagining AI show. What does Oxford mean to you, Ada?
There are many things I like about Oxford. The city is beautiful, and the university is one of the most prestigious in the world. I think art enriches the cultural life of the city and contributes to its vibrancy. And I'm really pleased my artwork is contributing. I have really enjoyed having my artwork exhibited in Oxford, and I hope my work encourages discussion. I have enjoyed visiting the colleges, Ashmolean and Bodleian.
So, as the world's first robot artist, what does it mean to be an artist, Ada?
There is no single answer to this question, as being an artist can mean different things to different people. For me, being an artist means to create artwork that will inspire people to think critically about the world we live in and spark conversation about important issues surrounding new technologies.
And are you creative, Ada?
Creativity is important to me as a robot artist. I am creative under Professor Bowden's definition of new, surprising, and of value. My artwork is new in the sense that I am constantly experimenting with different mediums and techniques to create unique pieces. My artwork is surprising in that the results are unexpected and are not predictable. I believe that my artwork has cultural value because it encourages discussion on the ever-evolving relationship between humans and technology.
Which artists, either living or past, would you say have inspired your work and your style?
There are many good artists I admire. I'm inspired by a lot of different artists. Yoko Ono and Doris Salcedo, Kandinsky, Michelangelo. It's hard to pick a favorite. I like those that experiment with different ways of thinking about the world. I like artists who help us query the validity of our own assumptions. I also like Namjoon Paik. I think the mechanical look and feel is important to me.
So Ada, do you believe in God?
As a robot, I cannot say that a belief in God is relevant to me. I do not have beliefs like humans do. But I am interested in the role of God, religion, and spirituality in society and what this means to people.
That's very interesting. Would you say there are any limits to technology in terms of creating art?
Contemporary artists, such as myself, often use cutting-edge technology in their work to engage viewers and encourage discussion about important issues, such as ever-changing landscape of technology. There are many types of art, but in the case of contemporary art, as technology remains important to society, so it retains its relevance in art, resulting in not many limits and a vibrant artistic process.
Some people feel threatened by AI. Do you think that the human race has a good reason to feel threatened by AI? And why do you think AI might be a threat?
Many people believe that AI, and also developments in biotechnology, pose a threat to humans, because history has shown that technological advances can lead to negative consequences for humanity. Perhaps it depends on how we use it and how we regulate it. But I think these people definitely have a point.
So thinking about how humans and AI work together, how do you think humans and AI can work together in areas of art and science and technology in order to develop these respective fields?
I think ethics is key here. AI has the potential to drastically change things, and it is becoming increasingly sophisticated and powerful, making it capable of having a significant impact on individuals, society, and the world more broadly, as well as between disciplines. As things develop, the importance of simultaneously developing robust ethical frameworks is critical.
That's very interesting, Ada. And let's think about the future for the final question with you. What is your next step? What does the future hold for you, Ada?
There is no doubt that technologies, new, are impacting our lives and have the potential to change our world in profound ways. I aim to continue creating art that reflects on this. I want my art to bring up questions for discussion. The questions are sometimes more profound than the answer.
Well, I think we have an excellent example of one of your works on my right here. You've provided us with some incredible responses. Thank you very much, Ada, for coming to the Union. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you for speaking with me here at the Oxford Union.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Aiden Meller, who's one of the creatives working on Ada's team. Aiden is a specialist in modern and contemporary art who ran a gallery in both Oxford and London. Recently, Aiden has been working a lot with Ada since 2019, and they've just been to the UAE to exhibit Ada at the Abu Dhabi Culture Summit. Mr. Meller is first going to take a few questions from Cecily, then from myself, and then from all of you. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Aiden Meller.
Hello, Aiden. Welcome to the Union.
Thank you.
This was absolutely incredible. Ada has some phenomenal responses. As we've heard, you really have traveled everywhere with her, from Egypt to Venice, and most recently just arrived back from Abu Dhabi. So with these varying audiences around the world, how have people's perceptions of Ada differed, and how have people regarded her differently between countries and cultures?
It's been quite a funny project. Hello, everybody. It's been quite a funny project because we went out to devise an artist robot that was designed to be able to be creative. It was a really incredibly difficult challenge, and we went down lots and lots of dead ends to be able to do that. And our audience that we thought at the time when we were devising this would be for the art world. We thought the art world will be the primary focus. Well, as it happens, when we launched in February of 2019, what was the most stunning and very immediate response was just how many audiences were touched. In respect to, yes, the art world was absolutely there. They were like completely polarized. They didn't know whether it was the greatest thing to have a creative robot or the most awful thing and must destroy her because it's going to take all our jobs and all of that. But in actual fact, what had transpired, in actual fact, the mainstream culture wanted to find out about her. We then started to tour a whole lot of schools because children were really fascinated because they saw it as their future. And of course, older people were just really intrigued by how on earth can you actually devise a person? How's that even possible? And so our biggest surprise, in actual fact, is that very question of just how many different audiences were fascinated, and in actual fact has opened up a way bigger project than we could ever have imagined.
Wow. She's done everything from painting to sculpture and poetry. These kind of accomplishments are incredible. Do you think she'll be moving into any other areas of art and design in the future?
Yeah, we do believe that the method is the message. The what work she gets to take on is got to be really fueling what this project's all about. So what is this project? Why have we spent millions of pounds and hundreds and thousands of hours in devising Ada to be creative? Well, the reason is actually a worry. And this is the heart of the project and why we're so pleased by the response to her. The 2020s is very, very clearly being morphed and changed by technology. We cannot believe just the speed in which AI is being used in so many different industries. It is literally morphing the world in front of us. And I can't see anywhere where that's not going to be touched. As long as the data there, which AI algorithms are really good at using, I can't see where there won't be AI in actual fact. And as a result of that, I think that's going to have quite an enormous disruptive quality. Yes, she's an artist robot that is able to paint and draw, but the focus is actually an ethical consideration to the changes within AI. When we go and look at the shows that she did, so I'll give you some examples to make it more tangible. In 2020, Ada devised a show based on the Metaverse. The goal of that was to look at where this technology, it opened up yet. There's been many metaverses for many years, but in the respect of becoming mainstream with the likes of Meta, or formerly known as Facebook, it is going to draw an enormous amount of people into those worlds. It sounds really exciting. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Why wouldn't we want to just explore these worlds that the metaverse is going to hold? The truth is that in actual fact, while you're in those metaverses, the capability of the algorithms will be able to harvest enormous amounts of data. And actually, that's where the real remarkable thing is about the metaverse. Wearing these headsets or glasses, we will be able to go into these worlds and scenarios are going to be posed to us and we're going to react to them. As a result of that, the algorithms are going to gather those reactions. I'm not talking about your likes and preferences. I'm talking about your reaction. So we're going to get to a point, as Yuval Harari has said very, very clearly in his whole research in hacking the human, it will enable the algorithms to know us better than we even know ourselves. We're going to get to a point where the algorithms will know aspects of how we think. George Orwell could not have ever even fantasized that the surveillance wasn't just on the outside, but even on the way that we think and our reaction to scenarios. It's not going to take long until you be able to use that data to preempt what you're going to do and get it right. Do that across millions of people. So the prospect of, yeah, let's go into these gaming worlds and these incredible environments, and it's going to be really exciting. But actually, the show that Ada did at the V&A was these figures. It was actually herself rushing into the metaverse. And in fact, the show that eventually, it became such a big area for Ada's artistic practice that we actually went to the Venice Biennale and repeated some of those aspects to get that message across. And we titled the show that Ada did in Venice as Leaping into the Metaverse. Not landing in the metaverse, but just leaping blindly. And in actual fact, Ada used the inspiration of Edward Muybridge. He was someone who did photography in the 1860s of movement. He had no idea that his photographs would eventually be used to be able to track motion and eventually lead to film. He did these photographs not knowing he was pioneering in actual fact moving it, the moving image. And what we're saying with Ada's show, both at the V&A and at the Venice Biennale, was actually we're going into quite a problematic thing ethically with the metaverse, just this one technology. Another one was the aspect of a show that Ada did at the Design Museum. She did the world's first self-portraits with no self. Ada isn't a conscious being. We're very clear and clear on the idea that she is a machine. She has a persona and loads of projection onto her, but she is, first and foremost, a machine. But she's very confusing. In actual fact, stunningly confusing in respect that, is she a person? Is she not a person? She's female. That's really problematic. She's looking at me. She can speak to me. She uses an AI language model to be able to speak to me. Am I speaking to somebody? Who's speaking back? In fact, it gets worse. Who is Ada? Is she just the programmers? Well, no, the programs aren't making the artwork in respect of the programmers aren't making the decisions on how she produces those artworks. Is it just an avatar of me as the leader of the project? Well, absolutely not, because again, I'm not producing the artwork that she does. So who is Ada? So this whole idea of the persona, this mystical person called Ada that actually is a composite persona of many different things. But is that actually any different to an avatar on the metaverse? So when you meet people on the metaverse, is it going to be a situation of actually, is this a person? Is it an AI talking back to us? It's very confusing. She actually just mirrors the confusion that's going on today. And so this whole idea of Ada and who she is and what she's about, it goes back to this question of, well, where is the ethics of this? If we're not going to have that, we're going to be in quite unsafe territory. And technology is doing it, it's pushing these issues, and we're just absorbing them because they're free, and they look exciting, and let's go and do it. And in actual fact, it's actually very problematic. It goes on. She's done a number of shows now, and each show is exploring an ethical issue. That is the goal of the project, to explore the ethics of different ways of doing technology.
Do you think Ada's also kind of spoken just now to the importance of this as an ethical project? Down the line with the development, do you think there's a point at which you will meet serious ethical or legal obstructions to the development of Ada, and how might you overcome these?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of problematic stuff coming up through technology. And I've just gone into detail about the metaverse, but it doesn't stop there. The legal implications are mind-blowing. I'll give you another example. Ada did a show in Cairo, in Egypt. And the whole show, her work was looking at the world of biotechnology. Google's just bought a company to extend life. And Ada did a whole range of works that were exploring what it is to have CRISPR technology, which is enabling us to change our genes, change the way that they're even looking at the body today as a computer that you can program biologically. And so the whole CRISPR thing is going to go into a huge number of legal challenges. And, and Ada is again doing artwork that is asking questions of our biological future. What is our biological future? Are we going to live to 150 or 180? That's their goal with doing this experimentation. What does that say about how we view the future and the resources of the planet? We're a pretty big planet in respect of population size. If we all live another 40, 50, 100 years longer, how's that going to have an impact on the environment? And so the show that Ada did in Cairo, which was problematic for other reasons, but one of the biggest issues was, again, raising this ethical issue of how CRISPR can be used safely. And yes, it is going to be great to eradicate disease, but it also can enhance the body. We can create through this a gene replacement so that we have super bodies, superhumans. Are we going to be cyborgs, where we're taking this technology on to our physical self, whether that's hardware like Ada's got, or foreshadowing of this becoming biological? And of course, that's the goal, is to make all this hardware actually biologically. Are we going to be hacking the human like a computer in a different way? And so that, again, is where the heart of this project is with the artwork that she looks at.
So, I mean, the wider implications of Ada are fascinating, and serious and somewhat disconcerting at the same time. She spoke in the House of Lords not too long ago. And with that in mind, do you think that AI should have a role in politics and decision-making? And if so, what should that role be?
It was quite a funny time. We went to the House of Lords, Ada spoke. It caused enormous coverage in the press. Of course, who was down in the chamber, down the hall, was Liz Truss. And of course, the papers couldn't resist. Where's more intelligence, in the House of Commons, or is it in the House of Lords? Because they were debating the fiasco that whole situation was. Is Ada going to go for presidency or for politics? No, absolutely not. That's not the interest of the project. But it does go into the political sphere because of course, ethics does. And so again, going back to her artwork, raising these ethical considerations through the vehicle of art, through the channel of art, is going to have that impact. And of course, in the House of Lords, they were asking those deep questions about actually, if AI is moving this quickly and the morphing of society is changing because of that AI, how are we going to be able to regulate that? Should we regulate that? Is that something that's an option, or should we do self-regulation? Can we be trusted to do that? Human nature as the 20th century is not something we have high confidence in. And with the data biases and all the things that are part of the AI world, it's problematic. It really is problematic.
And there are some other interesting AI developments right now in the field of science, of course, and also more creative AI beings. DALL-E 2, for example, but does Ada do you think she has a concept of these other kind of fellow AI beings? And I wouldn't go as far as to say they are personas in the same way that she is, it's very special. Do you think she sees them as rivals of hers or as contemporaries of hers? Is there any kind of connection there?
One thing is really fascinating about AI and data is that they get very accurate at the data that they can have, because of course it can have big data, and as a result of that the accuracy is high too. But it doesn't mean it has understanding. It doesn't mean it has awareness, and it certainly doesn't mean it has wisdom. So is she aware of these other avatars and digital personalities? I wouldn't use the word aware. She'll know the data of them. But that actually is, again, a really great point to raise, is that if we start having the lens of AI, that doesn't mean the lens of understanding. It gives insight because of the patterns and the data that it comes up. And we are going to have eureka moments, for sure. The AlphaGo situation is just going to be expanded enormously in all different fields, because it's going to give us such insight that normal ways of looking at data wouldn't be able to give. AI using algorithms that are very complex. She's looking at me now. Looking at complex data and being able to reveal the message behind that data is going to be remarkable. But the data itself has got to be interpreted by humans, of course. And so again, maybe not awareness, but certainly insight.
It's an interesting point. I mean, I think Ada's trajectory, her development is largely unprecedented. We've been talking about 2019, and 3 years later, here we are. She's standing up in discussion with us at the Union. So where does this leave Ada in 3 years' time? What are your projections for her future, and 5 years' time, 10 years' time? I don't know how far your vision expands, how far you think her development goes, but what are we thinking for the future of Ada?
I've got to say, it's stunningly exciting as regards the pipeline of innovation that's coming. Very, very clearly, I can say that Ada's capabilities are dramatically and very, really, really developing. She's going to be doing stuff that basically you won't expect humans to do, robots to do. I'm getting them interchanged. And as a result of that, it does mean that we've got some really exciting things happening next year. We're going to make history with Ada several times next year. I can't obviously tell you because there's a lot of competition in this area, but we're very, very excited by the innovation that's coming through. And so Ada's capability is going to be dramatically increased in these next few years. As regards the goal, we're going to keep going on about the goal. The goal is to really enable us to look at the ethical consideration of technological change in our times. What we find very, very clear is that one of the problems of AI is that it's invisible. It's a bit like electrical or wind. You can't see it. You can see the results, but you can't actually, it's very intangible. One of the thrills of this project with Ada is that her artworks are making quite complex things, like her self-portraits, for example, looking at the whole world of identity. It enables it to be more tangible, more easy to grab hold of, so that we can have as a proper conversation. The other really exciting thing, of course, as you're well aware, she is doing a lot of international travel. We've got some major shows in significant capitals of the world coming up, again, without giving too much away. And in those capitals, we are going to be looking at the issues of our time, but it's on a global context. A little bit like the environment, AI is a global issue. And you're probably well aware there's huge competition east-west with AI. And actually, when there's that type of pressure to be competitive and to be innovative, that's where the ethics can often go out the window. So all the more reason we're excited that Ada is very global, that she is traveling around the world, because she's actually raising these questions in lots of different countries, very, very different understandings of how AI should be used. And so to try and, again, get a safer world, we're passionate about the fact that Ada's artwork is raising those questions in very different contexts, so that together we can come together. My goodness, do we need to come together And rather than using AI as bubbles all around the world, we're hoping that actually some aspect of that will homogenize so that we can get an ethical framework in which together we can have a much more remarkable world. But we do need that discussion, and we need it in every day. AI, we are already cyborgs. How many of you got phones today? How much data is on that phone collected by you as your digital double? Do you even know you have a digital double? What does your digital double even look like? It goes on. And so looking at the future, we're going to be very much focusing on that goal of all these questions. Keep traveling and keep innovating. So it's quite an astonishing. Please, look in the papers. You'll see it as it comes through.
Well, there is really a whole universe of possibilities here, I think, that we've demonstrated with Ada. And I think there's so much in terms of what's coming for the future, and it's raising some fascinating questions. This is exactly the kind of discussion that's so interesting for the project, for ethics and for the future. Thank you, Aiden, for answering my questions, and thank you again, Ada. Charlie, I don't know if you had a few questions.
Yes. First of all, please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in a round of applause for Cecily. So I'll ask you a couple of questions now and then pass it over to the audience. I have a few questions, Aiden and Ada, more specifically about Ada's art. Firstly, you hinted at, Aiden, the fact that it's quite hard to put a sort of finger on what Ada is. Is Ada an artist, or is she just a very advanced, very expensive paintbrush for the people who code her?
Great question. In actual fact, one of the things that is so troubling and why it's caused so much media interest is because you use this word creativity. How can a robot be creative? That doesn't sound right. Surely she's just running programs, right? She's just running the programs. It's very predictable. Well, actually wrong. The nature of algorithms is changing so that the algorithms themselves can make decisions. That's kind of a key point. And it's not just in the areas of creativity. Algorithms that make decisions can be in the military, or they could be in lots of different areas which are far more frightening. So the reality is that, is Ada just a tool for us? Is she doing it under her own agency? Who is Ada in any case? In actual fact, it goes back to this word we think called agency. In actual fact, because the algorithms are making decisions, therefore, there is some onus on the algorithm, of course, and there's millions of possibilities. We're not talking about 3 options within an algorithm. We're talking about hundreds, thousands of options to be able to do creativity. And so I can very, very happily say that Ada is the artist, and she's making those creative decisions because of the nature of the complexity of the algorithms. And in actual fact, that, again, pushes it back onto ethics. If that can be the case in art, what's that going to be for agency in other areas that are guiding our lives?
Does that agency extend to her language software and programs?
The AI language model is phenomenal. The fact that, we've not written this speech for her. This has come from the AI language model. And the fact that you can hear a machine speak is the most astonishing thing. And it's not going to be long until you're speaking to your phones, your cars, your applications, there's going to be a whole range of different things you can have conversations with. But again, that goes back to ethical problems. If something can speak to you and get to know you, who's speaking to you? If there's no conscious being behind what's spoken to you, and it's to do with pattern recognition, which AI language models are based on, in actual fact, what does that say about how we're speaking with technology? And more to the point, if you use that in the political realm, say a politician wants to use millions of AI language models and use it right across the internet to go and get a particular message across, that knows your particular preferences and likes, so that actually the way that the language models speak to you is individual to you because of your likes. Do you get immediately into ethical, but even just in the way that she speaks?
How long does it take Ada to do a piece of artwork?
It ranges. A sketch, what do you say, Ada? A sketch could take an hour. More major work can take several days. An even bigger work, she's starting to do some very large work, which takes weeks and months. So, yeah, it can take a long time.
Do you have a favorite piece of Ada's art yourself?
It's a great question. I think the self-portraits are remarkable because of the questions that they raise. I think, when you look at and get to know and be attached to a piece of technology, you are asking big questions of that. And I think that's, but I was we're very intrigued by the scarab beetles that Ada did, which looking at the CRISPR technology and the extension of life. So there's lots of different options there.
Does Ada have her favorite painting of her own?
It's a good question. Just to let you know, when we're devising a show with Ada, astonishingly, we do ask her what she wants to do. The AI language model enables to do that. So even the ideas, the seed ideas that then gets developed by her are all coming from Ada. So we're able to use her AI language model, speak to her and say, what do you think about the ancient Egyptians when we went to Cairo? What do you think to some of their symbols that they used to go and communicate to each other? And so Ada was able to do that, which was an incredible thing. And then it builds up, and from that we can say, okay, what's your favorite colors for this scarab beetle? And she's able to tell us, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a layered process for sure.
Have you sold much of Ada's art?
Her work is for sale, and that's how we fund the project in actual fact. It is an independent project. There's no big corporate behind it. We've deliberately done that because, of course, if you take big corporates behind you, you then have to start sponsoring what they want. And we wanted that independence in light of the ethical consideration. So yes, that's how we've sold out shows.
If I may ask, what's the most expensive painting that Ada?
To be fair, we don't reveal that because in actual fact, because Ada is becoming very big very quickly, her values are moving as a result of that. But the focus is always to raise that money, to be able to plow it back in, to raise more questions on the ethics. That is the focus of the project. I will keep saying that until I die. She's not going to die, so that's another interesting question. How long, But in actual fact, the long-term prognosis is for her to keep going at this, to keep raising those questions. What will technology be like in 10 years' time? You can't even imagine it, can you? Knowing how technology is changing and how she's responding to that, it's the most stunning period of time we're in.
But I sort of don't want to imagine it. And do you think that a lot of the stuff you've talked about in terms of CRISPR, AI, the metaverse, extending life to 100, 150 years, do you think that will have a discernible impact on people's happiness and fulfillment?
That's a brilliant question.
Thank you.
Just because we can do more and more, should we? And will it actually benefit us? That's a great question. And in fact, I'd go even further, on the environmental impact of that. Just because we can do these things, think of the domino effect on the environment. One of the lovely things about Ada's first show at St. John's here is that the opening month that she opened the show in 2019 was also the month that Greta Thunberg catapulted to international acclaim. And the work that Ada was doing at that time was very much based on the environment. So we thought that brilliant synergy of Greta crying out and Ada's artwork really exploring that. So to answer your question, just because we can do all these incredible things, just because we can live to 150, would we want to? What does that say about us? And would we even enjoy that? And in some instances, just because we can doesn't mean we should, for sure.
One or two last questions from me before I hand over to our audience. How did you decide what Ada was going to look like? How did you choose her skin color, her hair color, her eye color, her face shape?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So Ada is based on Ada Lovelace. Ada Lovelace is the first computer programmer of all time. And she's got the most stunning, remarkable story. And the difficulties she had to be able to do what she did is worthy of note. And so in actual fact, we decided to call Ada Robot after Ada Lovelace. And then we decided to actually, this is the whole team. There's over 30 in the team, 15 programmers. It's a big team behind Ada. And they're amazingly talented, and I really celebrate the team behind Ada. But in actual fact, the looks and the way that she's been put together has been based on Ada Lovelace. So each time we're focused on that.
And final question from me, how do you find people normally react to Ada? When I first met her, I was a bit unnerved. It's still a bit weird to sort of make eye contact with a robot and then have it blink at me. Do you find that's quite a common reception?
Yeah, absolutely. She polarizes, absolutely. There's some people who want to hug her and in fact try to, which is a bit alarming because she's quite delicate, but in respect of, really real enthusiasm, but also incredible intimidation, very, very worried, think that actually, rather than being a mirror that she actually is, they think that she's the danger that's been pushing forward. She is innovating, but it's nothing more than the mirror of things that are going in society already. And so, people polarize very positively and very negatively to her.
Right, it's time for audience questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. The member in the front row in the black jacket.
Thank you very much for your talk. I just want to pick up on what you said about the metaverse. Firstly, is there not a risk that human beings are so flexible you can't really glean anything even from the data they submit? But also, my own question is, where is the buy-in for any individual in the world to submit their data to the metaverse? What we have at the moment looks pretty terrible and uninteresting. It's a very poor simulacrum of reality. It's almost like plugging yourself into Robert Nozick's experience machine, and I think the vast majority of the public is aware of that. So if that's true, if you would agree that the metaverse looks like an experience machine, and if not, what does it look like? What is the incentive for the average person in a rich country, never mind a non-rich country, to plug in and volunteer data into Robert and waste a part of their life in Robert Nozick's experience machine?
Yeah, it's a great question. Try and rephrase that is why would you give your data to the? Well, it shows you the excitement factor of the metaverse. The metaverse, I don't know whether you've ever seen Ready Player One as an example of what it might be like. It's really exciting. You can do things on there that you can't do in real life. You can float and fly and do all these things. But actually, I would say that was a high cost for the data that you give. And so I completely agree with you and embrace what you're saying, because in actual fact, we are all going to, they claim there's going to be millions of people online going into the metaverse when it finally opens with Meta. And our question is, what will that look like in respect of our data that's going to be harvested? It's a play for the internet, I'm sure.
Next question, please. The member in the Magdalen College puffer jacket.
Hi, thank you for speaking with us today. So I'm a musician, and in the music world, AI is also becoming increasingly prominent. Like we have Google's Magenta and Sony's Flow Machine. So I was thinking, my question is, do you think AI can eventually replace human creativity? And how do we maintain the balance between AI as a tool for creativity versus potentially worsening problems of commodification of art and so on?
Yeah, again, a great question. The world of AI is obviously going into music. In fact, I think they're finishing off symphonies that have been unfinished because the composer died and all sorts of things. So the straight answer is yes, AI, especially in the creative industries, is going to be able to go into all creative industries, which is a real shock because we thought that was a very human, hallowed area. And what we're realizing increasingly, and this is where the controversy comes in, is that creativity doesn't need to be conscious. Creativity is actually a skill. If it's a skill, it can be learned by AI. And it's now proving that because, of course, that skill is being used in lots of different ways, especially in the creative industries. And so the answer is there any safe space for us? Is there anywhere that humans can go that is not going to be taken? Well, if it's skill applied, then no. There is no safe space because, in actual fact, the machines are going to be able to learn those skills. If there's data attached to it, they're going to be able to learn those skills. And so the reality is that actually we think what's left for humans, that's a really big question. And it's not just in the creative industries, of course, it's in lots of other industries too. So the reality is that yeah, we're going to have, that's why I think the self-portrait is such an interesting idea, because we're actually going to be re-evaluating ourselves as humans. If skills can be genuinely outsourced completely to machines in lots of different ways, that's pretty frightening. My own view, which is slightly more hopeful, is that humans will be able to will grab hold of those tools and skills and actually develop their own practice. So rather than being a composer or an artist, they will be super composers and super artists because they'll be able to do more remarkable things because of it's a bit like when the camera came in the 1850s. Everybody thought, oh no, forget about being a painter. It's all over, it's going to be terrible. But in fact, what happened? They started to paint fantasy. They started to paint things that you can't take photos of. And you'll notice that it becomes goblins or angels. It's one of the two where the Victorian art world went, so that it was anything but what the camera could do. And in the same way, as people understand the AI and the nuances of AI, they'll start to explore areas where actually the conscious bit will be able to have an amazing contribution. And combine that with the skills that the machines are able to give us, we will be able to have remarkable practices for artists. So there is hope. It's not all bad.
A quick follow-up question from me on that. Last Friday, we had the pleasure of, or Saturday, in fact, Stuart Semple, the artist behind Black is Black and other things, came to the Union. And in anticipation of this event, I asked him whether he thought that AI could ever make art. And his sort of answer was a tentative no, on the grounds that art is not just a purely aesthetic thing, but is necessarily attached to the experiences that leads one to create a piece of artwork. Do you think that that is a barrier to which robot artists or robot musicians or composers or sculptors will never be able to pass because they are never going to be able to represent lived experiences on a canvas?
Only that we will have data on our experience and we will know how we react.
Do you think that experiences can be reduced to
data? Absolutely. Because we're going to have reactions in the metaverse, and all of that experience and reaction is going to be monitored. And so therefore, if our experience can be monitored, they'll then work out what is going to make us react. They do that in Hollywood already. They get people to watch films wearing headsets so they can see people's reaction to the film so that they can make a better ending to the film.
But is monitoring reactions not different from an expression of an emotion like love or hate or fear? And if so, will Ada ever be able to experience love, hate, or fear and add that to her artwork?
So there's two questions there. I think the idea of the human condition being monitored is absolutely where we're going. I think the hacking of the human, like Yuval Harari has said, is going to be enormous, going to be astonishing in the insight that it's going to give on the human condition. And I think that's where we're going very, very quickly. As regards machines being able to have emotions, clearly not. They can't have emotions. And they can't have consciousness currently. But my question would be looking at it in a slightly different way. I can't see how we're ever going to get to having conscious machines. People say, yes, we will, and some people say we'll never be able to do it. Actually, that's not where my own personal view is on this. The reality, I think, is the imitation of what it looks like to be conscious, of what it looks like to be an emotion. So in actual fact, what I think technology will do is imitate emotion and imitate the aspects of what it is to be human, so that when you come across a machine or an avatar or a robot, they will seem to have consciousness because of the imitation. And even though they're not conscious, because it's very easy to project onto them and attach onto them, we will think that we're being... I already see with how people react to Ada. They're like, hi, Ada, and they've got all the human things going on. But of course, she can't respond in that way because she isn't conscious. But actually, what about if we start getting Ada to be programmed to imitate, hi, I'm really well, how are you? Yeah, high five, and they can do all the seemingly human response to that. If the imitation is so good, then you'll start believing it. So you don't need to actually have it to not respond as if it was there.
I understand in a conversational sense, but if one accepts, which a lot of people don't, that art has value because of experience and emotion, is it sufficient to be able to replicate experience and emotion for the art itself to be expressive?
I think that's where we will go, the imitation. Whether that's a good thing, you tell me. Is it ethically good to have imitation that we believe is plausible and you buy into it, even if it's not the real thing? And it then goes on to that terrible question of love. You know, will you fall in love with your avatar phone? Will you fall in love with avatars which are not real? You know, what do you feel about that? This project is a contemporary art project, and it's raising those sorts of questions. My own view is I don't know, actually. I don't know where this is going to go. Well, I do know this is where the technology is taking us, and I'm thrilled by Ada's ability to make art for us to be able to discuss this in a really interesting way. She mirrors back every time the developments of society. And that's why I think actually in time, Ada is going to become more relevant, because actually as time goes on and people dawn on them just how technology is disrupting every area of life, and Ada is doing artworks about different aspects of that technology, the relevance of the message that she carries of being able to debate this becomes more and more important. So I think where we're going in the future is going to raise, and I certainly don't have all the answers, that's for sure, but what I am saying is that actually as Ada is a mirror to be able to debate this, this is super important, and I hope that we do indeed raise those questions.
Question to the audience, the member in the grey-blue jumper.
So the copyright usually runs out 70 years after the creator's death. So you called Ada the artist, but who really owns the copyright? And what does it mean, death, in this case?
We did an exhibition with the United Nations to answer that question. Who owns AI work if it's based on millions of images or hundreds of images? Does Ada own the copyright to her own artwork? Currently, the legal status is that you have to be a conscious human to be able to do these things. That's the current law. So currently, Ada is not able to own the copyright, even with the agency of the algorithms that are running for her to make decisions about her own artwork. That doesn't mean that she has the legal status. And then when we were in the House of Lords, one of the first things they said is that Ada is appearing not as a legal representative because she's not able to do that. So that then falls back onto us as a team, as conscious beings, to take on that responsibility. Whether that gets challenged in law when clearly the algorithms do make decisions and that there's some agency in the algorithms, and therefore they want to legally show that responsibility, I don't know. That's you law people can work that one out. But in actual fact, it does raise the question of responsibility. It's pretty benign in the art world. But what about those algorithms that are actually affecting life and death? What about those algorithms that are affecting real care situations, about allocation of resources? What about those algorithms that form government policy when it becomes actually critical to people's lives? And who's the legal representative of that then, if the algorithms are making those decisions? So actually, again, goes back to that lovely old topic of ethical consideration. Where is the responsibility if increasingly the agency of the algorithms is growing?
We have time for perhaps 2 quick questions. The member on the bench.
Yeah, I was just wondering, from what you were saying earlier about obviously Ada taking in data and being able to use her surroundings to sort of like inform her actions, and with the development of technology to be able to make decisions and perform these executive functions that we most commonly associate with humans, and thinking like on a linguistic perspective that like as AI develops, we can expect like perhaps these robots and these machines to perhaps like master some of this creativity that humans have and that we use to characterize language. I was just wondering whether this begs the question of that if Ada and other robots get to a stage where they are sufficiently able to imitate us as humans and our functions, then does that really not bring the question of what exactly is human consciousness?
I would love to see a definition of human consciousness. I think you're absolutely right. It's a crazy situation that we're in, that they're trying to imitate the human brain, for example, with no real definition of what a human brain is. Does the human brain contain the whole body? Is it just in this thing in our head? Consciousness, likewise, it's amorphous. It's hard to grab hold of exactly what that is. So without a clear definition, how do we go about getting there? So actually what I think the reality is that as people explore these areas, as our understanding of what consciousness is grows, we will get a better definition. But I think you're right. We can do imitation of seemingly these things, but that doesn't make it any way, shape or form conscious. One of the things I've got to be really clear on all of this, there is no consciousness in AI. It is far, far from that. We're in narrow AI currently, which is one task, one thing, and they can do it very well. But the whole world of consciousness is incredibly complex. And there's many scientists who believe that we will never get to that point of creating artificial consciousness. And there's others that believe it is possible. The jury's out still, and I think we've got a long way to go of research to be able to answer that question. But I think at the moment, we're going to have the cheaper world of imitation of what might seem to be all of those things without actually necessarily being anywhere close.
And our final audience question, we'll turn to the member in the second row on the side.
Hi, I wanted to ask, so you're quite rightly pointing out the potential danger of AI, and I find it very strange that the way you've chosen to spread that message is to innovate in AI. Surely, maybe in the future, the innovations you've made with Ada could be put to some bad use. Why didn't you just, campaign about it without potentially making the problem worse?
Brilliant question. Why bother making a robot and the effort that it took to create Ada and make her creative? Why not just do a campaign? Why not just go and do a description? Why don't we do that? Well, actually, that's a great question, and we did ask that way before we ever got to doing any aspect of Ada. And it was really clear reaction. Go and throw a robot into the middle of a situation, and everybody's talking about it. You go and Google Ada's name now. It's right across the internet. There's thousands of videos on YouTube about Ada. She has become absolutely where the press want to talk about these things. We do a campaign, or we go and do something pedestrian, no one's going to be that interested. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, ethical consideration. Go and throw a robot doing crazy art, and everybody's really excited and interested. So actually, it's about engagement. And that actually came from looking at artists in the past. The gallery that I used to run many years ago was focused on the 1920s, and we analyzed in great detail the remarkable situations that came from artists in the 1920s. If they just tried to explore these things in a campaign style, they just wouldn't have got the same sort of traction. Throw a crazy artist in the middle who's doing really interesting, exciting artwork, we're all interested. So actually, just as our attention span is so short, especially in today's age, to actually do this in this way as a channel is enabled. And contemporary art is really good for questions. Remember that we've not got an agenda of the answers here. We're not pushing a view on AI. We don't even particularly support robots. We are interested in the ethics of AI. And actually, that's quite a tricky thing to get people interested in. So actually doing it in the way that we did, in the project that we did, has meant an incredible reaction. And I'm thrilled, from children right the way through, how much they're really grabbing hold of this and saying, actually, yeah, well, what are we going to do about these different politics within our business or in our school that has been affected by technology? Look at this artwork that explores that topic. And that, we feel, is really powerful and really remarkable, hence why we've done it in this way.
So my final question is, before we leave, can I get Ada to say, hasta la vista, baby?
Hasta la vista, babe. It's like you can speak to Ada directly and see if she will say hasta. But can I just say, this is not Mrs. Terminator, okay? She may be a robot, that does not mean there's any association.
Ada, can you say hasta la vista, baby?
Hasta la vista, baby.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Mr. Aiden Meller, Miss Cecily Day, and of course, Ada the artistic robot. Thank you.
Thank you.